Well, I wanted to thank John Downing and the college for having me down at the Global Research Media Center. It's a pleasure to come to Carbondale, and exciting to get to see some old friends and see your campus and get to meet some of the students. So as John said, this project, what I'm talking about today was coming out of this book that was published about 1.5 years ago. And we made it a small book on purpose, right? We wanted to get some ideas out in a timely way and kind of help to jumpstart a conversation and a broader discussion about the ideas of preemption and some of the changes that are taking place in public spaces across the country. So Greg Elber and I, we did, this book is, it's about 100 pages. It's really trying to lay out the ideas in the hopes of sparking some conversations and response. And then the follow-up has been, we have received a Social Science and Humanities Council grant from Canada to pursue turning this book into a documentary project. So I'll be talking a bit about the ideas in the book and then the specifics of the documentary project today. So I want to start with an overview of some of the ideas that are motivating this project, including the idea of the logic of preemption. I want to describe a bit about what research creation is. We'll touch on changes in public space and civil disobedience. We're going to walk through how this is intersecting with citizen-generated media and talk about collaborative open source media making. And then look a bit at our methods and our results, what we found to date. So in terms of ideas, this idea of preemption, right? I think we're quite familiar with it as an approach to foreign policy. Certainly, preemptive war was really articulated extensively by the Bush administration. And what we found is that it also has a domestic component. And so part of the discourse and the way it's been emerging domestically is through this discourse of action, right? And this is both international or foreign and domestic, right? This idea that we must act, that there's not time for contemplation, there's not time for deliberation or debate, that action takes priority over this sort of deliberative democracy, which is really the cornerstone of how civil society functions, right? So another component is this idea of shoot first, ask questions later, kind of what also has been referred to as fire and forget technologies. And this is, again, taking place on a military level in some of our engagements overseas, as well as domestically on the streets. Then another key idea here is this idea of the spatial turn in First Amendment law. And this comes out of Timothy Zick, who's a lawyer now at Georgetown. And time, place, and manner are the three ways that free speech is regulated within our history of challenges and First Amendment law in the US. And place has been largely under-theorized and considered mere res, kind of a neutral, the courts have recognized it as a neutral factor. So as long as people are allowed to say what they want to say, where they say it isn't particularly important. So if we carve out a space, if we carve out a protest zone, if we carve out a space for them to express their speech, that's still, then the place is neutral, right? So the spatial turn in First Amendment law is a renewed attention to the power of place and the power of space to segregate speakers from their audiences. And then in turn think through the implications of that segregation. And that's this idea of then threats become spatially contained, and threats being in this case, protesters, people on the streets, acts of civil disobedience. This is also linked up with Bigo's conception of the panopticon, where instead of a panopticon where we have surveillance that is attempting to instill civic behavior and self-policing, what we're seeing now is a panopticon where we're seeing people being corralled, detained, banned from participation in civil society. Extended detentions, certainly the Guantanamo Bay model, is not one of rehabilitation. It's one of pulling people off the battlefield and keeping them detained indefinitely. So banning them from participation in society. And then finally, this idea of a futurist predictive modeling that moves from what if, so a what if scenario, what if something happens, to a when then. And that's kind of tied in with this idea of inevitability, that we know the next attack will happen, and when it happens, then we will respond in these ways. So these tropes show up in mainstream media products, in public policy documents, and are some of the ideas that are motivating this project. We're also interested in open source models. Clearly, there's been some very strong success in the open source concept. Wikipedia, we're all now very familiar with, and our students go to it too much, right? And Linux operating system is another example. We're also interested in new forms of documentary. And what we're seeing is that once you get outside of the constraints of a broadcast model and can blow apart the news whole, if you will, then we're seeing documentary forms that extended lengths of time, interactive models, nonlinear models. And I want to just see if we can get a couple of these to come up. Let's see here. Well, these should be, oh, there we go, okay. Okay. Okay, so this is an interesting piece done by filmmakers about the Palestinian-Israeli issue. And what they did is they filmed in two cities, in Gaza and Zarat, Israel. The cities are 3 kilometers apart. They did 2 videos a day, one in each city, and for 40 episodes. And then the way the program, just looking at this as an example of kind of the changing modes of documentary possibility here. The center timeline reveals various dates during the filming period, and then we end up with split screen and. Okay, and then if you go see in each of these, then you can jump to a different date, and see. And when you click on it, these are all subtitled, and so it's a nonlinear model. So again, exploring some possibilities there with the documentary form. Another one I'd like to highlight is this Diamond Road, and this came out of a film. It was put together as a 2-hour documentary, but what they've done here is they've created a database. They broke all their raw materials, the extended interviews. They had, there's usually a minimum of 10-to-1 shooting ratios for documentaries, oftentimes many times more. So you end up with all this great material, but it all ends up on the cutting room floor. Well, the internet allows for this interactive database where they've meta-tagged all the interviews and broken them into little 5- and 10-minute segments, and you can then navigate these interviews and the information and video that's been shot around the world about the diamond trade, about the consumption of diamonds, about the production, the marketing, the consolidation within the diamond industry, and follow it. And as you make choices, the meta tags provide material based on your choices. So it's you self-navigate through this database of video material. So those are just a couple of examples of the way broadband access to the internet allows for high-quality streaming video to be organized in new and powerful ways. Okay, so our project then is a 3-year grant funded by the Social Science and Humanities Council of Canada. We're looking at issues of preemptive law enforcement and secrecy. And we're 9 months into the first year of the 3-year project. we're interested in this idea of crowdsourcing and the idea that there's information out there that lots of individuals have, and can we aggregate that information? Can we, through an open source model, can we get participation? Can we gather information from the bottom up and put it into a central location where others can then use it? And if so, how will that information differ from information that's traditionally conveyed through mainstream media and stories that are conveyed through more traditional means? So it's called research creation, right? So there's a tension here between the research process and the creative product. And within our own team, we've had to go back and forth between, okay, how much is this, are the research questions driving what we're doing, and how much of this is are we making a documentary? And so sort of debates within our group have been, well, myself, I teach documentary production. I have an interest in the technical execution and all the logistics that go into shooting high definition, well-lit, high quality audio interviews and location B-roll. Whereas other people's priority might be data gathering, data management, and tracking the process and trying to, and maybe less concerned with the technical aspects of executing a documentary. So, and we've found that this, we've run into some hurdles that while broadband is good and allows for a lot of video, you can't still push high definition, full res files through and have people watch them, right? So we're able to upload some footage, but users are not then able to download that same high quality HD media as of yet, and that's something we're working with the software designers on. And you'll see the site as we move forward. Okay, so a little bit of background here on public space and civil disobedience. Clearly, there's a long history of civil disobedience in the U.S. We've had the civil rights movement with the incumbent images of dogs, fire hoses, and billy clubs that are all too familiar, that we know played a key role in influencing public opinion about the civil rights movement, both nationally and globally. We've had large demonstrations, anti-war demonstrations, bodies in the street, right? It's a long history, and this is just to remind us of that history. But what we're seeing now are the rules of the game are changing. And starting with Seattle, 1999, we saw the widespread use you're seeing here, paintball. This is pepper spray being indiscriminately sprayed on protesters. This is a pepper spray paintball gun, big tanks of pepper spray. So kind of new technologies being introduced and being applied in ways that really we hadn't seen on such a large scale. Then we fast forward to Miami, 2003. And this is when so we had 4 years, 1999 and 2003, of a lot of large protests around global trade gatherings. Quebec City, Genoa, every time ministers of the WTO or various trade agreements were negotiated, these large demonstrations would happen. Well, so Miami became a site then where they said, okay, we're going to push back, we're going to respond to this. And they came up with what has been called the Miami model. And the Miami model, some of the features include the preemptive detention of activists. So before the protest, they went around and preemptively detained people. Also at the very beginning of the protests, green-hatted National Lawyers Guild lawyers were selectively picked out of the crowd and detained. Large sweeps of people were cordoned off by pop-up lines of police. The National Lawyers Guild has some extensive documentation on what happened in Miami. And the city of Miami, the city council, ended up issuing an extensive apology to the people who were the victims of this model because it was so egregious. But this strategy of overwhelming police presence, mass detention for the period of the meetings. So it was just so people were detained and they were released without charge after 4 days once the meetings were over. And they also enlarged the zone. The people were kept 2 miles from the meeting space. So again, part of the segregation, the separation, using physical space to separate speakers from their audience. In 2004, then at the Democratic Convention, this is a picture of the protest zone that was created. So no protesters went into this and used it, but it was it was sanctioned by the courts. It was seen as a perfectly legitimate way to create a protest zone, if you will. And clearly, this has implications on what types of messages might be received. You know, you're putting yourself in a cage. You're instantly identifying yourself as in need of containment, as speaking from behind barbed wire and fencing. Right? It has a great deal of impact on the speech. And then also in 2005, on President Bush's second inaugural parade, also similar protest zones were erected along the parade route. Okay, so as a part of what's happening then, in terms of these spatial containment strategies, what we're seeing now as well are a change in the technologies. There's this spatial containment that's going on. And then there's also new technologies that have been introduced that are affecting discourse in public spaces. And it goes back to pepper spray being the first. And this is a photo that comes from a 1997 incident out in Northern California, where 3 women went in and locked themselves to a tree stump in a congressman's office. And they were then swabbed while they were chained together because they wouldn't release themselves, which is a typical tactic of Earth First. They were swabbed in the eyes with pepper spray. They had their heads in a headlock, and they literally swabbed these. They used Q-tips. They sprayed the and. The video was circulated, was played on the news. The New York Times wrote a response, but this was really the first time that these technologies were directly applied to nonviolent. There was no security threat, right? There was no danger. These people were immobilized, but the time and attention to go get the fire department to come cut them out of the things that they had to keep chaining them together was seen as too burdensome. So they opted for using this pain compliance technology. Here's a picture of a paintball gun, where it's got pepper spray in the paintball. That was then used in the Boston Red Sox celebration after winning the pennant race against the Yankees in 2004. And Victoria Snellgrove, the unfortunate Emerson College student, happened to be out taking part in the revelry on the street, and she was hit in the eye by one of these pepper spray paintballs and died as a result of that injury. So that's just an example of the fallout from these technologies. They consistently are referred to by the manufacturers as non-lethal technologies, but civil society, civil rights groups, and human rights groups have really been labeling them less lethal technologies. Another example here is the sticky shocker, which allows for a bit of distance between the police and the victim. It can be shot, and it delivers the same charge as a taser, except at a greater distance. And then, of course, we have the taser, which is becoming increasingly ubiquitous among police departments across the country and around the world. Taser is now over $1 billion a year in revenue, and continues to market their appliances to both policing agencies as well as consumers. These are unregulated technologies. They're not a firearm. They use compressed air. So the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms doesn't regulate tasers. So some of the changes then that we recognize that are taking place around these technologies are this idea of although there's a growing experience now, a growing awareness of what a taser might do, there's still not, it's not a common conception. We can envision and conceive of fire hoses, dog bites, billy clubs. But these pepper spray, many of us still haven't experienced. Tasers, many of us still haven't experienced. So then this opens up a space where there's a question, is the person overreacting? Is this just a drama? Is this hysteria to elicit my sympathy, right? So that in that lack of familiarity then, we argue is one of the ways that these technologies are functioning. Like keeping the public from reacting as viscerally as they might if there was a more familiar technology. And then there's also this question of representation, because what's going on here is there's a real sense of invisibility. Tasers are an electric shock. They leave no scars in most cases. We can't see the club being wielded. We can't see the fire hose. So this lack of visibility then is part of, reinforces a lack of understanding of the technology. So what we're seeing then is a struggle over visibility. That representation is a critical part around these technologies, because at the same time that the technology itself is invisible, the interactions and the tasering of people is increasingly being documented by citizens with citizen-generated media, right? It's all being captured by incidental media, and that representation is having a large impact on people's. It's having legal impacts. They're showing up in courtrooms. It's having public perception impacts of the impact of the weapon, as well as policing strategies and responses. So this is, and in response to this, Taser has 2 years ago. Taser introduced a camera that is now mounted to the top of the Taser, that is much like the dashboard cam of a police car when you get pulled over. And so we argue that this camera is part of an attempt. It's part of the representational struggle that's going on around these weapons, in that the point of view of the officer becomes the point of view of record, right? That becomes the media of record of the event. And then other points of view may or may not be introduced in court and may or may not be seen as legitimate. So it's an attempt to take these images of these events and create a defined point of view, and the point of view being the police's. Okay, so these, like I said, they leave no physical scars. They're difficult to photograph, and they're part of a broader strategy to control images that we've seen really since 9/11, that include embedded journalists, extraordinary rendition, where people are flown out of the country to black site prisons, and the whole idea of black site prisons, right? Where we don't know where they are, we don't know who's there. There's no lists. And a secondary component to this project, which I'm not speaking on today because it's Ken Werbin, who's one of our collaborators, it's his area of emphasis, but is the idea of the no-fly list, right? And there are increasingly, these lists are proliferating domestically and internationally. Again, they're these secret lists, right? We're not told who's on them. We're not told how you get on them. It's very difficult to get off of them. Oftentimes, you won't even be acknowledged that your name is on it, despite repeated problems when you try and board airplanes. So this idea of secrecy then and invisibility is tied in then with this broader logic of preemption that we're trying to work with. Okay, this is, let me just pause this for a second. This is the regional director of Amnesty International, Southeast Regional Director. And Amnesty International has been issuing reports on tasers since 2002. The most recent report came out last year, documenting over 330 deaths from tasers, as well as a range, they're extensive reports with a range of what they see as human rights abuses around the world with tasers. So let's just hear from Jared Fuhr for a minute here.
And deal with it step by step. Threshold. Significant concerns is the low threshold. It's not even, and it's of course very substantial and concerning that people are dying, but what we are, in particular worried about is that a taser has gotten in the way of this basic equation, which is that law enforcement should use the amount of force proportional to the threat. And if it is not a threatening situation, but it is a situation that is, difficult or annoying or time consuming, and an individual is, not complying with you, that normally what an officer would have to do is talk down the situation and deal with it step by step. And what's happening now is we're telling them, hey, here's a device, it's strapped to your belt. This is a quick and easy way to resolve a situation. The person isn't complying, you tase them and the situation is over. And as a result, tasers are being used in all sorts of situations that would not even call for a police baton. I mean, there's 6-year-olds who have been, a 6-year-old was tased in a principal's office, 75-year-old woman who was tased in an assisted living facility, pregnant people have been tased, individuals with health conditions or have been tased. It's just being used over and over again as a way to quickly end a situation, and that's not appropriate for a 50,000 volt shock device.
And this is an example of the kind of the video work. This is our original work. We shot this, and the kind of content that we're making available. So we've made the whole interview available online, and I'll show you the website here in a minute where it's accessible. So trying to use this open source idea, and that we will make our raw materials available, and in the hopes that other people then contribute and make their raw materials available and see the range of uses of those materials, because we know that in a rip, mix, burn culture, right, people are very, very active and creative about their media making these days, and that there's all sorts of repurposing of media. So we're producing this sort of media as part of the content that we're producing and uploading to the site. So some of their findings, Amnesty's findings, over 330 deaths in the U.S. Most were agitated or under the influence. Most were subjected to multiple shocks that exceeded the 5-second recommendation. The people who did die, of those 330, the people that died went into cardiac arrest at the scene, right? And so that's often then part of what's happening here, is that they go into cardiac arrest right then and there. Medical personnel, there isn't time for medical personnel to respond. 90% of the tasing victims were unarmed. And it's often accompanied with then the use of pepper spray and or other restraints. So you'll see, and a simple search of taser on YouTube produces hundreds of videos where people both either in custody or in nonviolent situations where the taser is being used strictly for compliance. It's not where the person isn't a security threat, but it's used to attain compliance, often just verbal compliance. Okay, so Taser's response, they've put out quite an extensive response to Amnesty. They're saying they've had 45 wrongful death lawsuits have been dismissed. They have yet to be found guilty or responsible in any significant lawsuit yet. They've got a response here. And just looking at the last bit, we're particularly disappointed by Amnesty's complete disregard for the health and safety of the men and women of law enforcement who put their lives on the line every day. So they, again, very much are seeing this as something that protects law enforcement. And their report really reflects this perspective, where they talk about 80% reduction in deputy injury over the first 2 years of deployment. And they go through county by county. It's kind of an interesting report in that, unlike Amnesty or a more traditional report where you get an executive summary and then they work through the data, this is put together as a series of, there is no executive summary, and it's just a series of anecdotes from police departments around the world. We see here this quote from Topeka, Kansas: "When an officer pulls out the taser, people give up. That happens a lot." Well, right. So that's part of a growing conception of knowing what it can do to you. And there's throughout the report, there's endless citations of references to facial lacerations and chipped teeth from when people fall because of being incapacitated by the taser. Recently, just this fall, the Ninth Circuit Court ruled to deny immunity to the police in their excessive force, use of force case against a gentleman who was tased. He was pulled over for not wearing a seatbelt. He expressed some frustration at himself in the car. He got out of the car, And the police officer, after a series of interactions, and he was not being either agitated really or violent, the court and the video showed, the police tased him, and he chipped 4 teeth and cut his face quite badly. So he proceeded to sue, and so far the initial lower court ruling was the police wanted to dismiss it and say it was they're immune from this kind of, they have immunity. But the Ninth Circuit Court has ruled that they don't have immunity, and so the lawsuit can move forward. We'll see what happens but this is really the first time that a court of this level has sided with a taser victim and started to say, okay, police need to begin to establish more guidelines, and there needs to be more oversight about the way tasers are being deployed. And this was a quote from the findings of the Ninth Circuit. We hold that only the X26, which is the model of taser, and similar devices constitute an immediate only when they do an immediate significant level of force that must be justified by a strong government interest that compels employment of such force. So when you get these being used against simple traffic violations, people in really misdemeanor situations, nonviolent situations, which is again really a majority of the use right now, the courts are starting to say that's excessive force. Okay, other technologies that are being deployed are a microwave device that makes your body feel like it's hot. This is a sound device that emits a very loud, unsettling sound meant for crowd dispersion. These, like the taser, are again, they're sort of these neoliberal technologies, right? They're being developed by DARPA and RAND, a lot of public money going into the R&D, and then the copyright holders get spun off into private industry and turned into profit. So, kind of a typical model that way. Okay, so what is this? How are people responding to all this, right? What are we seeing? And one of the things we're seeing is a lot of media being made around this, and there's been quite a bit of public media generated and citizen media generated. One case in particular, the Robert Zikansky case in Vancouver, where Polish immigrant, first time in Canada, arrived, was detained for an extended period of time, became agitated, was tased, and died. Turns out that the RCMP, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, account of what happened differed significantly from the video that was captured. So in the court proceedings that came out, the video contradicted RCMP account and found use of pepper spray when pepper spray wasn't said to be used, found multiple taserings when more taserings than were admitted. And this was a classic case where he went into cardiac arrest right then and there. And it's really quite disturbing to watch the video because there was no life-saving action being taken either. They didn't go into immediate CPR mode. And so a tragic, unnecessary death. Okay, so now there's also, what we're also seeing is citizen media then being picked up by the mainstream media, right? And so we're seeing a circulation and a sharing of these images.
Palace students at San Diego State captured the images on a cell phone and contacted 10 News. Students we talked with say excessive force was used. The police say officers were doing their job. Take a look at the video and decide for yourself. The video shows 2 officers using a taser on 21-year-old Joshua Grandy, even after he's in custody on the ground. Witnesses say the 21-year-old was riding a skateboard on San Diego State's main plaza near the campus health center when an officer warned Grandy to get off the skateboard.
The guy with the skateboard kind of put up a little bit of a tough, I guess, with the police officer and said, so what, you're going to arrest me for skateboarding? And the officer had him get down on his knees and started to handcuff him, or was about to, and another officer came and they tackled him to the ground.
Listen to the police officer in the video. Witnesses say officers used the taser several times. Police say the taser was used only twice.
I was walking right about here, the cop had him bent over like this with no shirt on, and he was just like pushing him around, kind of trying to get his ID out and everything like that. And the guy wasn't resisting at all. He was just kind of standing there. I mean, it seemed way unnecessary.
Witnesses say students were yelling at the officers to stop. The sign says no skateboarding in this area.
Okay, all right, so hold on.
Police were called to the 10-year-old.
So you can see, that's the kind of classic local news format, but being driven by this incidental media that was captured, and of course, protecting our national security, keeping skateboarders out of the park, right? Now, this next incident is another example where there's not video of the incident, and that becomes part of the story. And this is a short news story.
Girls home for a domestic disturbance on November 11th. The girl's mom couldn't get her to take a shower. The officer's report says the girl was violently kicking and verbally combative when he tried to take her into custody. He says the girl's mom gave him permission to tase her if he needed to. He says he gave the girl a light shock to her back, and she wasn't injured. But the mayor is calling for an independent investigation of the matter.
Apparently, the policy was followed. At the same time, you still hate to see a 10-year-old taser. That's why we want, if at all possible, get an outside agency to investigate.
Police say the girl will face disorderly conduct charges as a juvenile. She's staying at an Arkansas youth shelter. The officer has been suspended for 7 days with pay, but not for using the taser, but for not having a video camera attached when he used it, per department policy. Myra Lopez, The Associated Press.
Okay, so right, it couldn't have made my point better, right? It wasn't that he used the taser on the 10-year-old girl who wouldn't take a shower. It's that he didn't take the video of him using the taser on the 10-year-old girl who wouldn't take a shower. So the representation of the event becomes central to the technology, and departments now, police departments and agencies, that's part of their protocol is to be sure that these interactions are captured visually. Okay, so our project then is using this open source cinema platform, which was developed by Brett Gaylor, and initially, here's a screenshot of the site. He made a film called Rip Mix Burn. Rip, a remix manifesto. Sorry, and that was using this platform and trying to, again, use kind of open source production. And so he's established this interface, and we're now really the second major project to start to use it. There's a few other projects on the site. I'll just show you a little bit of the site itself. So you can see here, here's members' contributions, various video clips that people have put up. One of the things we've been struggling with is that there's no descriptors here, right? There's no meta tags, so we've been trying to figure out, talk to the programmers, get a way to have those videos be more easily identified about what you're looking at, so you don't have to open them up and watch them. But and you can see these numbers here are all links to, it forwards through to, so you can see there's our Jared Fior interview in various chunks. There are comments down here. We found one of our findings that we found a lot of spam. Right, the comments section gets heavily spammed. We're always having to go through and take it out. So one of our findings is try and do something open source, and you become a spam magnet.
The first question I asked is
okay, so this is Andrew Meyer, and I think we all know Andrew Meyer through the phrase "Don't tase me, bro." And so that phrase became quote of the year in 2000 by the Yale Book of Quotations. American Heritage Dictionary added the word tase after that in 2007 after this incident. And so we wanted to talk to Andrew because this really became such an iconic moment around tasering. And so I'll just play just a little clip of our conversation with him. And again, this is part of the production work that we're doing and making available.
and he conceded the election on the day when there was multiple reports of disenfranchisement of voters. The book that I was carrying there, Our Madhouse, It went through the laundry list of tactics used to disenfranchise people, not allow them to vote. And it turns out that about 5 million people weren't allowed to vote. You know, that's a lot of people not being allowed to vote. You would think that he had some knowledge that there are people not being allowed to vote. And as it turns out, I did some research after the whole thing happened. He was saying before the election, like, I want to make sure every vote is counted. I know that there's a lot of discrepancies. I know that there's things going on that aren't as they should be. And I'm not going to go down without exhausting every legal remedy, you know. And then on the day of the election, he just concedes immediately. It was strange to me. I didn't understand it then. I still don't understand it now. John Kerry said that they were important questions. He said that he wanted to answer them. It's true that I stood up and they were telling everyone to sit down. There's not going to be any more questions. And I went to the microphone and I said, you know, I want to stand here and ask my questions. You know, the fact that I was standing up and not sitting down when they told everyone to sit down, they signaled for accent and signaled for police officers from the back of the auditorium to come, I guess, take me out of there. So I went to the microphone and I said, am I going to be arrested for trying to ask you a question? And the police officer arrived and he was going to take me away. I was going with him, and Senator Kerry said, well, that's okay, let me answer his questions. So I got back in line, I asked him my questions, and then as soon as I was finished asking my questions, before he even answered, I was taken away. 2 security guards were behind me.
Okay, so you know, primary source testimony, right, about the incident. There's references that I just made to some of the popular culture. Another way that we're trying to aggregate some of this information is to reach out to communities of interest. And organizations like Working Films have been using this as a documentary production distribution model where The Ghost of Abu Ghraib, that documentary, they partnered with Amnesty International on their distribution, and were able to have 1,000 house screenings across the country of that film through this Working Films model. So linking up with the people that are already invested in these topics and already working on these and showing political commitment is a way to reach out, to find an audience, find distribution pathways, and in our case, find content. So I wanted to just show you this example of how much there is out there about tasers. This is a blog called Excited Delirium about taser use, and I just want to scroll down here so you can see our allies in the blogosphere. Truth Not Tasers, Tasered While Black. Jonathan Turley, the Georgetown law professor who you often see on Keith Olbermann's MSNBC, he's got an extensive database of the tasering videos on his personal website. He's very concerned about it as a human rights issue. Stop Taser Torture, Tasered While Latino. The list goes on and on, right? So these are blogs dedicated to really the subgenres within tasering. Okay, so. Then, partly in response to this, then we've seen citizen media being generated, incidents being captured, but then we've also seen people picking up this media and doing things with it. And that goes back to our classic circuit of culture, right, where things are being picked up, repurposed. We've got lived cultures, taking these media fragments and repurposing them. And what we're seeing, they're repurposing them for a number of ends, right? Sometimes for political ends, to make a political statement, and sometimes just for entertainment.
Don't take me, bro. Don't take me. I can't do it.
I woke up this morning and I had myself a question. So I headed down to the John Kerry convention. I just wanted to mention the vote for election. Next thing I know, I'm fighting for my own protection. Damn, it all happened so fast. I was on the microphone recommending great class. Next thing I know, police are on my ass. Now I'm feeling the wrath of their taser blast. All I wanted was my 2 minutes, just to tell the people about the book and who was in it. But they don't want to listen, so they drag me away. Hell, I ain't stealing autographs, my name ain't OJ. I'm just trying to talk about GW. I'm sorry, Mr. Kerry, I didn't mean to trouble you. You see, I wasn't resisting, I was just moving slow. And now I'm on the ground, don't tase me, bro.
Okay, so that's one example, right? Where and they're filling in some detail there as well, right? So they're trying to shed some light on the event as you know, as well as make a piece of entertainment. This other piece is a bit of where we're getting it sampled. You know, this is more comedic, right? And linking it up with other cultural products. Okay. And we have a doll as well that was marketed. And just today, I don't know if you saw it on the news, Scott Brown, the new senator from Massachusetts, also has a doll out as well. So I guess, you know, this kind of pop culture response to politics happens at lots of levels. And now, what we're also seeing, as well as kind of everything from the political to the comedic, is something that we find particularly troubling, and we've kind of dubbed this comedy torture porn. I just want to share just a little bit of this piece. Okay, so you've got, you know, tasering then becomes completely acceptable form of entertainment. It becomes funny to watch people be tasered, and it's a simple, it's a short move from watching this and laughing to watching the citizen, the skateboarder, the fellow student be tased in a more serious context, right? Okay, so some of our conclusions. What we found is that less lethal technology is part of a preemptive logic where action precedes evidence, fire and forget, shoot first, ask questions later, do the mass detention, worry about the apologies and the lawsuits down the road, all part of that same logic. This logic includes the control and production and distribution of images, right? So there's a struggle taking place over who's producing the images, whose images are the images of record, where do those images show up, and it's very much in play. This struggle is very much in play, where you've got the citizens' activity is active in playing a critical role in shaping perceptions around these technologies. So you get the citizen tactical media challenging control. And then finally, we argue that the citizen media needs to be linked up to broader conceptions of freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and other core democratic values to counter what we see as this movement to aestheticize torture porn as an acceptable form of comedic entertainment. Jackass being another venue where you see that kind of entertainment happening. In terms of our project, to date, we've done a lot of solicitation. We've gone through and identified many videos on YouTube and done personal requests to people to contribute to our project. We've had really very limited success in getting people to contribute, because we've asked them, would you upload some higher resolution footage of the media that you put on YouTube, things like that. We initially started the project and we didn't have a lot of our original content, so we felt like, oh, you know, that was a mistake because people were going to the site and saying, well, where's your content? So a little bit of a timing error on our part. We have also, we're expanding and trying to target groups that are part of this community of interest, and so we're in the process of doing that now, reaching out to those communities. We still need to network with other community and activist groups, other people, natural affinity, natural audiences. We're using social media to announce our new material when we do create new material and upload it. We've put up a skeleton script that's available as a wiki. So again, seeking contributions through the wiki model to the script and to content areas, and trying to solicit some ideas, see what other people think is important to cover when talking about these issues. We've thought about a mobile upload system where you could upload from the field or from your phone. And that also right now the website has problems and has some real difficulties in terms of interface. So we've got some challenges ahead. We've got a couple more years. I invite you all to look at the website and go ahead and contribute some media products, use our media products, repurpose them, show us your remixes, and mashups, and hopefully help contribute to an archive of information then that will be available. We will leave these materials up. It can become a repository and a place where we can aggregate a lot of information, visual information, and make that available to people worldwide. Because this issue is not isolated to the U.S. and these themes are proliferating around the world. Thank you.